What's up guys, how's it going? So I'm doing a little mini review I guess of this game. It's called Overlanders. So this is a game I picked up on the eShop. It was on sale. I think I got it for like under £1. So really super cheap. So you know, it's kind of, when I see a game like that you know, I think, well, this looks like it could be pretty decent. I'll probably still look up a review online, which I think I did for this, but yeah, you know, it's worth taking a punt on. You're not going to be taking much of a risk. Yeah, and I'm pretty impressed with this game. It's good fun. Actually, we'll go to the very first race in the game. So, I mean, it definitely is what it is. It's a little indie game. There's not a ton of content here for sure. You basically got your main campaign and your multiplayer, which is online only, which is something that does irritate me. I can understand, especially for a small indie game like this, that, you know, implementing local multiplayer where you've got split screen, that's going to affect things like your frame rate and, you know, sort of how well the engine can handle whatever it's trying to run, because it's got to replicate that kind of multiple times. At the same time though, I think, you know, especially this game is not, it looks nice. You'll see in a moment. I'm going to start this the first race on the single player campaign. You know, it's a nice looking game, but it's by no means like, yeah, anything crazy visually. But again, you do have to take into account that this is an indie developer game. It's probably made by a very small team. I'm not sure whether this was developed for Switch specifically, but it definitely has that kind of mobile game-esque sort of feel to it. Like maybe it was developed for, you know, a platform like Android. So, oh god, terrible start here. But you know, it's nice. I think especially if you can pick this up for under £5, I'd say. I mean, especially if it's like under £1, like I got it for. Just go for it if you like your racing games. This is basically very reminiscent of Star Wars Episode 1, Pod Racer. So yeah, you know, sort of semi-flying, floating vehicles. So you're kind of hovering around the tracks. The controls are really nice on this. It's a nice mix between, you know, they feel very tight and they're very natural. There's a little bit of a learning curve, like you'll need to, you know, after a couple of races, I think, you know, was when I kind of got to grips with it. Basically, you steer your vehicle with the left analog stick, and then the right analog stick kind of is almost like a drift, so it kind of lets you make sharper turns essentially. So there are a lot of sharp turns on the courses, as you can see. So there's a nice element of skill in that, especially as the levels get harder, where there's an element of like knowing the maps a little bit, where maybe you have to race them a few times, because there are some very like sharp turns that, you know, will appear out of nowhere almost, so you have to react very quickly, and you have to kind of get the timing right, because if you make that turn too early or too late, then you're going to come off the track or hit the sides and damage your vehicle. And there is, I think on the normal races, I can't really tell so far because I've not played this game that much, but I don't think there's a damage component on the normal races. But then if I go in to this level, I think this is, it's not very clear what which races are which types of races. Basically, you only have two main types that I can see so far. There's your regular race, and then there's these kind of boss battles. I think it's on this race. You should see shortly. So it's like a normal race. I'm racing against other racers here, but there should be, if I picked Yeah, there we go. I have picked the right race. So there's that creature, dinosaur type thing. So he has a certain amount of health, and basically you have to come first in the race, and you have to take him out. So it's kind of like a race against your opponents to take him out. And as you can see there, I just hit the sides, and I got some engine damage. Again, I'm not sure yet whether, I think there's just a recovery time on that. I don't think there's any pickups that like restore your health or whatever. Yeah, that's not especially clear yet, because there is a tutorial, but it's quite basic, and to be honest, I didn't pay much attention to it. But yeah, you can see I've got a hit on him there, on the dinosaur dudes, and yeah, he's taking some damage. But yeah, it's a fun little game. Like, there's nice control mechanics. There's a good amount of like element of skill to it, and I think especially with kind of having to learn the courses a bit. But it seems like there's quite a few levels in the single player campaign, so you know, I imagine you get a decent playtime out of this. I've no idea, because I don't have Switch online. I don't pay for the membership because I'm not really especially into online gaming, so I've no idea whether there is. I imagine there probably won't be much of a user base playing this online. But if there is, then you know, I feel like this would be a fun game to play online. You know, you get a good amount of hours out of it through that as well, just the online component. But yeah, it does. It's a shame really, because I bought this. I didn't even look into it. I just bought this as, you know, I was like, oh well, it's super cheap, like next to nothing, and it would be a good, because I wanted a few more multiplayer like racing type games on my Switch, yeah, for when I have mates around, yeah, and then I bought it, loaded it up, and realised that yeah, you couldn't do any local multiplayer, which is a very common thing nowadays. Even with AAA games, there'll be a lot of just like online only multiplayer, which does annoy me. Like, I know it's a lot more commonplace for people to play online, but for me personally, you know, I still feel like there's a good amount of people that want to play local multiplayer, and it's a very different experience having friends around and playing a game together than it is even if it's those friends you're playing with online. It's a very different experience playing online. And the local multiplayer experience, playing split screen and being in the same room with people. Oh, I won. Okay, I wasn't really paying attention there, but cool. Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah, being in the same room and playing a game with people, like it's just its own experience, and I think both have merit. But for me, I really like that local multiplayer experience. I mean, don't get me wrong, like right now, with the current real world situations, yeah, it's being able to play games online is a way of being able to hang out with friends a bit, that you know can't meet up with people in the same way, depending on where you are. I know it's different in different places, but for me, you know, we're in a full-on lockdown right now, so yeah, can't meet up with people in the same way. But yeah, it's definitely worth a go, this game, I think. Like I say, there's not a lot of content here. It's very basic. There's not much depth, but I think for what it is, you know, a little indie game on the eShop. You know, the presentation is nice. The music's a bit lacking. It just seems to be the same kind of handful of tracks repeated over and over, and they feel very kind of stock You know, like when you just yeah, go in GarageBand or something and get a bunch of the Apple loops, string them together. Yeah, but it's not bad. Like, you know, the music's fine. It serves its purpose. And yeah, there's nothing particularly stand out here in terms of the presentation, but yeah, it's a fun little racer. Good mechanics, nice presentation. You do have some upgrade options here, so you build up points through doing races in the single player campaign, and then when you build up enough points you can upgrade your ships. Yeah, very basic options, just some audio options, input options, which they're not really options, it's just telling you the controls. Yeah. Oh, and you've got you can limit it to 30 frames per second in handheld mode to conserve battery, which I suppose is a nice little feature. So I guess that means it runs 60 frames per second. I'm not really a frames per second guy, so I don't necessarily pick up on those kind of things that much, but yeah, it runs very smoothly. I've not really noticed. At the start of races you get in some pop-in of textures. You can kind of see things loading in, which is not that big a deal, but once things have loaded in, yeah, the races run smoothly. Doesn't really seem to be any real frame rate dips, yeah, loading times are fine. So yeah, performance is good. Yeah, I think for me the only thing that's lacking for me is the lack of local multiplayer. Other than that, I think especially if you can pick it up on sale, for what it is, a little cheap indie racer, it's good fun. It's definitely worth your time. So yeah, I hope that's been useful if you're wondering about this game. Yeah, check out some of my other videos if you'd like to see some other gaming related content, focusing on the Switch mainly at the moment. Yeah, thanks for watching.